Welcome in, everybody. Bobby Broyles here with Tim McDonald for This Week in CAA Football, the Week 6 edition. September is now officially old news, but it's hard not to look back at the games from last week that included some league contests coming right down to the wire.
Well said, Beebs. And it was just 2 games that went to overtime, and a couple of games that they started really slow, and the scoring was kind of just slow progressing, and all of a sudden, fourth quarter comes and teams realize it's time to win games.
It's time to go.
I'm going to start with the Stony Brook game. Stony Brook scores with 1:12 left on a running play, 33-yard touchdown from Stacey Bedell. They go up by 7. Everything's golden. All of a sudden, Steve Cluley and William Mary come down, and Sean Ballard, who runs what looks like it's a simple out route, all of a sudden turns into a 50-plus yard touchdown. William Mary ties it, and once that game went into overtime, you had to know that the Tribe were going to win that one. Special teams played a huge role in that game, too. We'll get into that, but Stony Brook, missed a field goal, had it blocked, and they also fumbled the ball, which could have given William Mary a chance. Still a really good game. Then we go to JMU Delaware, 16-6 into the fourth quarter. All of a sudden, JMU comes back, ties the game. Yep. Delaware gets an 80-yard touchdown. And in overtime, Delaware's goal line D gets it done, stops JMU. And, of course, Towson and Maine came down to the end. How about Maine? What a win, a gutsy performance on the road. 3 fourth-down conversions on that final game-winning drive, Bob, and they get it done with a 37-yard touchdown.
Yeah, Maine,
stunned Towson.
Maine finally getting that offense going this week for the first time.
It was a
or this
huge
past
win.
Saturday for the first time this year. Then, of course, CAA football also had some impressive non-conference wins on Saturday as well.
Villanova said, hey, what? It's a road game. All right, we'll head over to Franklin Field. Really, it was a walkthrough.
Yeah,
that game was over in the second quarter. John Robertson, have yourself a day. My God. 4 touchdowns passing for the second straight week. There was still 11 minutes and 3 seconds left in the second quarter by the time he had already thrown his 4th touchdown. Yep. Might I add, he threw 4 touchdowns to 4 different receivers. Villanova rolled over Penn.
He got to put the baseball cap on.
Yeah, jeez, my God. That second half, I heard it was running clock or something. Then all of a sudden, UAlbany, we look at them versus Columbia. It's 35-0 at half. And UAlbany, the Great Danes, getting it done. The Dogs are 4-0 right now for the first time since 2003. And then UNH, closer than we thought it would be at half, but in the second half they pulled away, had a block punt for a touchdown. Andy Velas threw for 2 touchdowns, rushed for 2 touchdowns, over 100 yards rushing. They didn't miss a beat, UNH. And now another big week this week, Bob. Elon's going to have his first CAA game. I know we'll get into that in a little bit.
Yes, they are, but overall, those are a pretty good week against the Ivy, huh?
Not too shabby. Yeah. Not too shabby. That will do.
Let's stick with the Wildcats. UNH, like you said, Tim, travels south to take on the Phoenix of Elon, who make their CAA football debut at Rhodes Stadium.
If I'm Elon, I'm entering this game with a lot of optimism just because it's such a big weekend. We know the last time Elon was at home, they had a record crowd, over 11,000 people, I should say. This is the CAA football opener. When they signed up for CAA football, they knew what they were getting into. They knew it was going to be tough from the get-go. What better way to open up with UNH?
Yes.
A team right now who's ranked number 4. Let's not forget Elon last week played Coastal Carolina, who was ranked number 3. Number 3 and number 4, that's tough to do, regardless if it's the CAA opener or if not. No. UNH, like I said, Andy Velas came in and got the job done. I was more impressed with the weapons that he used. Jimmy Owens, the running back, had 2 touchdowns rushing. And the defense for UNH, let's talk about them. Let's give them some credit. The last 3 games, the defense has allowed 27, 26, and 19 points. That's going to be key. Elon throws the ball a lot. This is a team. Mike Quinn throws the ball. He's thrown over 170 attempts this year. So don't get me wrong, Elon's going to be able to move the ball. It's a question of whether or not they can stop that New Hampshire rush attack. 3 straight games for New Hampshire, over 200 yards rushing.
And like you said, Elon played Coastal. It's not rare for them to play a top 5 team in the FCS at home. I mean, App State,
That's
Georgia
true.
Southern back in the day. So this isn't anything new for the Phoenix. The CA.TV crew will be in attendance at that game, but we'll get into that a little later.
Yes, we will, sir.
Earlier on Saturday, Villanova makes the trip up to Orono to take on the Black Bears of Maine.
Yeah, before people keep thinking Villanova's just going to get on the bus, get on the plane, and go right up to Orono and roll over the Black Bears, I'd say let's have a little bit of caution there.
Yeah.
Maine allows 149 yards passing a game. Villanova passes for 250 yards. Something's got to give there. Maine defensively, I mean, they're pretty stout still. We saw what they did to Towson last week, only allowed 126 passing yards. Again, Nova, the scary thing about this team, it's not what it is what's going to happen with John Robertson. Is he going to rush well? Is he going to pass well? We've seen both happen, and it's really like it's a new movie every week with him. What's even more scary, I think, for Villanova are the weapons and the guys who are starting to turn into the identity of this team. Gary Underwood last week, 2 rushing touchdowns, 94 yards rushing. Mike Burke, Kevin Manungai, Kevin Goulias. You just keep going down the list. Not to mention Ernest Pettingway, the tight end. This Villanova team, the weapons are just starting up. Not only do you have to start worrying about John Robertson, you have to start worrying about other guys. Maine, on the other hand, what an opportunity at home. You get that big win at Towson. Nigel Beckford, the running back last week, rushed for 2 touchdowns. And Dunn, the wide receiver, caught 2 touchdowns. A lot of young guys stepping up for Maine. An opportunity for them. I think it's going to be close at half, but eventually I think Nova's physicality might shine through in the second half. But hey, crazier things have happened before.
Indeed, and that contest will be carried live on Fox College Sports at 3:30 on Comcast Sportsnet. 2 teams look to bounce back after tough losses as Stony Brook visits Towson.
2 brothers that love to wrestle. That's what I think of when I think of this game, because it's Stony Brook here and that defense. Let's not remember, Stony Brook lost that game to William Mary. I'm guessing they're still going to have a sour mouth. Sour taste in their mouth, I should say. Stony Brook was up in that game 14-0 in the first quarter. Eventually, William Mary starts crawling back. Offensively, Stony Brook's quarterback, Bednarski, played better. 16 of 29, 189 yards, and 1 touchdown. Stony Brook allowed 2 rushing touchdowns to Mikel Abdul-Sabor, the William Mary running back, last week. Those were the only 2 rushing touchdowns they've allowed this year. Still, defensively, you have to think that Stony Brook knows they can get it done versus Towson, because we know Towson loves to run the ball, and Darius Victor. Towson was up 24-20 versus Maine. They ended that game poorly, too. Like we said, gave up 3 fourth-down conversions on the game-winning drive. Both of these teams right now are very physical, very angry, and very in need of a win. Should be a great matchup.
Should be. If you like defense and running the football, this will be a perfect game for you. The Towson-Stony Brook contest will also be simulcast live on CA.TV. At 6, UAlbany tries to remain unbeaten with a home date against the Dukes of JMU. A lot of purple in this one.
This is my game to watch if you're a CA football fan. Not only because you're looking at JMU and how they respond from that overtime loss, but you're looking at UAlbany and asking, are the Danes for real?
Yep.
We're going to find out this week.
We will.
I'll tell you that right now. Vad Lee and that JMU offense, at times, I'm on the sidelines and I'm in the press box last week in Harrisonburg, and I'm watching this offense and I'm thinking to myself, okay, they should put up some points. They're moving the ball. It's just consistency. I think it's a question of they're still getting used to this system. We know they have the athletes and we know they have the ability to move the ball, but it's a question of, the short down situations they'd often find themselves, and it's just the little things offensively for JMU that didn't come through. UAlbany, on the other hand, we know they're going to try to rush the ball. Let's remember, this is the number 2 rush O in JMU, 244 yards per game, versus the number 3 rush O in UAlbany, 212 yards per game. Something's got to give there as well on the line of scrimmage. Omar Osborne had over 190 yards last week, the running back for UAlbany. And the Danes, confidence is a scary, scary weapon right now. I think that has a lot to do with this start. And this team right now, 4-0, has a chance to go to 5-0. What a matchup at home.
Moving on to non-league matchups at 1, Rhode Island returns home to take on rival Brown out of the Ivy League.
Rhode Island, if you're the Rams, you just need to keep on chugging. I know it was a tough loss last week to Central Connecticut State. A couple of fumbles hurt the Rams in that game. And you look at Mac Lowry, the quarterback, he's averaging over 140 yards per game. Someone asked Jim Fleming this week if there was a quarterback question, and he said, no, there's no quarterback controversy. He's our guy going forward. This is a roadie team. This is a rivalry. It's the state of Rhode Island. This is a big game. Don't get me wrong. Yep. It's a great opportunity versus Brown that's only played 2 games, a team out of the Ivy. You'd like to think because of Rhodey's ability to run the ball, I think as of late, I think they're going to have a slight advantage, but still, this is going to be a good game too. A lot on the line for that one.
Delaware takes a 3-game winning streak back to Newark to take on Sacred Heart.
And I know the Blue Hen faithful are very happy right now with that win at JMU last week, but for those of them thinking that Delaware's just going to come back to Newark and win this game for Sacred Heart, I'd say slow your roll a little bit. Sacred Heart's a team that went to the playoffs last year. They lost their first game of the season last week versus Bucknell at home. They're hungry for a win. They're 3-1 sitting on the year, and I'd look at their specialty players. R.J. Noel, the quarterback, and Spence, the running back, are 2 guys who average over 70 yards a game, and Spence needs 87 yards to become the all-time school record holder in rushing yards. This is a Delaware team last week that, we look at Michael Johnson, the wide receiver, who we thought was going to be a playmaker, and he is. He still is, don't get me wrong. He just hasn't had the type of production that we're used to him seeing. Joel Harrison last week had an absolutely monster game, over 100 yards receiving, 2 touchdown catches. And let's not forget about Wes Hills. He didn't score a touchdown last week, but the running back for Delaware ran for 136 yards, and Delaware's that ground game won them the game ultimately.
Wes Hills looked very good.
Delaware's ability to establish a run game last week at JMU got that job done, and I think they're going to try to establish that again. We know they're a run-first team. Again, if you're Delaware, Trent Hurley didn't play that great last week, but he didn't play that bad either. 3 touchdowns passing. Delaware, you have another chance to keep on progressing and keep on moving at home. Again, I think it's going to be a close game.
Wrapping up Week 6 is a homecoming for Coach Danny Rocco as he returns to Liberty with the Spiders coming off a bye week. This game can be seen live on ESPN3.
Another intriguing matchup just because of irony. We've seen this Richmond team, and we've used that word irony a couple times this year. Rocco, of course, coached at Liberty. All the years that he was at Liberty, Bob, they had an over 500 record. He turned that program around and turned that really a Big South team into a team that doesn't lose at home. And all of a sudden, it's kind of ironic because Richmond has to go to Liberty. Liberty has a great atmosphere. They were ranked last week, but they actually lost. Richmond, of course, had a bye week after that UNH one. Richmond coach Rocco used the term "circle the wagons," and I think that was a solid term because this is a team, let's remember, that UNH game, they had a great chance of winning at home, and ultimately they fell, and yes, it's tough to sit back and think that you're 2-2 still. Such an opportunity this week to move forward, and it would be nice to get a win for Rocco going to Liberty. Let's remember what happened to Richmond last year when they got a couple losses under their belt. Kind of seemed like they maybe felt bad for themselves a little bit. I don't think that's going to happen this year. I think Richmond has a great chance to move forward and forget that game, and still, this is a dangerous, dangerous team.
Very dangerous team, and you want to keep the irony thing going.
I
Coach
do.
Rocco comes home for homecoming.
Okay.
It's homecoming at Liberty this weekend.
Okay. You always got those tidbits, Bob.
There you go. CAFootball.com will have television clearance information for Saturday's games. And once again, CA.TV will simulcast Comcast Sportsnet's coverage of this weekend's contest between Stony Brook and Towson. As always, follow the action from across our campuses on CA.TV and CAStats.com.
Different week, but the same deal, Beebs. I got to tell the people, you can find us on social. You can find the league on Instagram, Twitter, and Facebook. Give us those likes if you want. You can search CA Football and use the hashtag CAFB.
CA Football's Going Deep feature from last weekend highlighted JMU and the Duke's offensive line. You can watch that now on CAFootball.com and CAFootball.wordpress.com.
And like we said earlier, the CA.TV crew will be at Elon as the Phoenix open up their first ever game as a CA Football member. You can keep an eye on CAFootball.wordpress.com for all the coverage from that weekend, including Elon's next Going Deep feature, which we're going to highlight on Tuesday.
CA Football's new podcast, The Yak, will be available tomorrow as Tim, Alex, and I take an in-depth look around the league. We'll also have special guests from both Elon and UNH to break down the big game in North Carolina.
In-depth, I like that. That's a good line. I got nothing else. You killed it. Good job today.
Thank you. Have a great weekend, everyone.